The alarm screamed so loud that even the walls seemed to shake. Red lights flashed down the long, narrow hallway of ADXa. Steel doors slammed shut one by one. Inside their concrete cells, men stood frozen, their hands pressed to the glass, their eyes wide. Somewhere deep inside the prison, guards were shouting over their radios. This was not supposed to happen. Inside Unit D, during what was meant to be a quiet AA meeting, everything had gone wrong. An inmate named Michael Carter stood with his fists clenched, his heart pounding. Chairs were overturned. Voices were rising. One man had just smashed his metal cup against the wall, the sound sharp and angry. Another inmate was screaming, "They lied to us." Guards rushed toward the unit, boots pounding the floor. The prison was one step away from chaos. No one on the outside would believe it, but here it was, a near-riot inside ADXa, the most secure prison in America. And it all started in a room meant for peace. Just before the guards stormed in, Michael saw something that made his blood run cold. A handwritten note slid across the floor, stopping at his feet. On it were 3 words written in shaky pencil. "Tonight, during count." Michael looked up, straight into the eyes of another inmate staring back from across the room. The alarms were still screaming, and the riot hadn't even begun yet. Weeks earlier, ADXa was quiet in the way only the world's toughest prison could be. The building sat alone in the Colorado mountains, gray and cold, surrounded by miles of nothing. Inside, life moved slowly, too slowly for most men. Michael Carter had been inside ADXa for 7 years. Before prison, he had lived in Ohio. He had been a truck driver with 2 kids and a small house. Alcohol had ruined everything. One bad night led to another, then to a crime he could never take back. Now his world was a small concrete cell, a steel door, and silence. Most days were the same. Wake up, eat alone, walk alone, think alone. The only thing Michael looked forward to was AA. Alcoholics Anonymous meetings were rare inside ADXa. When they did happen, they were tightly controlled. Inmates sat far apart. Guards watched every move through cameras and thick glass. Still, for 1 hour, it felt almost human. The AA group was small, only 9 inmates. All of them had problems with alcohol. All of them had long sentences. Some were violent. Some were quiet. But during AA, they were supposed to be equal. The meetings were led by a counselor named Mr. Harris, a soft-spoken man in his 50s. He believed, maybe too much, that talking could heal even the hardest men. "Share if you want," he always said. "Listen if you don't." At first, the meetings helped. Men spoke slowly, choosing words like they were stepping on broken glass. Some talked about drinking to forget. Some talked about hurting people they loved. Some stayed silent, staring at the floor. Then a new inmate joined the group. His name was Daniel Reyes. Daniel was younger than most men in ADXa. He had sharp eyes and a calm voice. No one knew much about him, only that he had been involved in serious federal crimes. He listened more than he talked. At first, Michael liked him. One day, Daniel finally spoke. "I drank because it made me feel free," he said. "But alcohol didn't fix me. It made me worse." The group nodded. That was normal. But after that meeting, Daniel started whispering to other inmates as they were escorted back to their cells. Quiet words. Fast words. Words the guards couldn't hear. Over the next few weeks, AA began to change. Men came intense. Some refused to sit. Others stared at the cameras instead of the counselor. The air felt thick, like a storm waiting to break. Michael noticed something else too. Rules were being bent. One chair had been moved closer than allowed. A pencil went missing after one meeting. Someone passed a folded paper hand to hand when the guards looked away. Michael tried to ignore it. In ADXa, seeing too much could get you hurt. Still, his gut told him something was wrong. One afternoon, Mr. Harris didn't show up on time. The inmates waited in silence. Finally, a guard spoke through the intercom. "You'll conduct a silent session today. No talking. No sharing." Daniel smiled. That scared Michael more than yelling ever could. During the silent session, Daniel slowly stood up. That alone was against the rules. Several inmates stiffened. He didn't speak. He only looked around the room, making eye contact with each man. One by one, they nodded. Michael felt his chest tighten. After the meeting, back in his cell, Michael couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the nods, about the smiles, about the missing pencil. He pressed his ear to the door, listening. Somewhere down the hall, someone tapped once on metal, then twice. A signal. The next AA meeting was the one that changed everything. When Michael entered the room, he saw more inmates than usual. 10. Then 11. That's not right, he whispered to himself. Mr. Harris looked nervous. We'll begin, he said quickly. Daniel raised his hand. I'd like to share. Mr. Harris hesitated, then nodded. Daniel stood. At AA, we talk about truth, Daniel said calmly. But the truth is, we're being treated like we don't matter. One inmate slammed his hand on the table. They cut our meetings, another yelled. They lie to us, a voice shouted. Mr. Harris tried to calm them. Please, sit down. This isn't. A chair scraped loudly across the floor. That's when it happened. An inmate in the back threw his metal cup against the wall. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Another man kicked his chair over. Voices exploded. Michael stayed frozen, his mind racing. This wasn't random anger. This was planned. Daniel's voice cut through the noise. Now. That's when the alarms went off. Red lights flashed. Guards shouted. The room filled with chaos. But this was not a riot yet. It was something else. A test. As guards rushed closer, the inmates slowly backed away from each other, hands up, acting confused. Just as quickly as it had started, the noise stopped. Silence returned. Guards stormed in, weapons ready. They searched everyone. No one resisted. No weapons were found. The inmates were dragged back to their cells, one by one. As Michael walked down the hall, something slid across the floor toward him. The note. Tonight. During count. Back inside his cell, Michael sat on his bed, staring at the paper. Count was when guards checked every cell. If something happened during count, it could spread fast. His heart pounded. Was this going to be a riot? Or something worse? Over the intercom, a calm voice announced, "Lockdown continues." Outside his cell, boots moved quickly. Radios crackled. Michael crushed the note in his fist, unsure if he should destroy it or keep it. Far down the hall, someone began to cough. Another inmate laughed quietly. And somewhere in Unit D, a door made a sound it was never supposed to make. A soft, metallic click. Michael stood up, pressed against the glass. Whatever was planned, it had already started. The click echoed through the hallway like a whisper of danger. Michael's heart slammed against his ribs as he pressed his face closer to the glass door of his cell. In ADXa, doors did not click open by mistake. Every sound was controlled. Every movement was planned. Yet that sound had been real. Over the intercom, a guard's voice came through, tight and sharp. All units, stand by. Michael looked down the hall. Lights still glowed red. Shadows stretched across the floor. Somewhere, metal scraped softly, followed by a low, angry murmur of voices trying to stay quiet. Count time had begun. Guards walked cell to cell, boots steady, eyes sharp. This was the moment when every inmate was checked. A mistake here could cost lives. A distraction could change everything. Michael held his breath as a guard stopped in front of his door. The officer looked in, checked his clipboard, then moved on. As soon as the footsteps faded, the murmurs grew louder. From the next cell over, a voice whispered, "Now or never." Michael felt sweat run down his neck. Down the hall, a door slid open just a few inches. Not enough to see inside, but enough to prove the impossible had happened. Someone had tampered with the lock system. In the most secure prison in America, Daniel Reyes stepped into the hall. Michael's blood ran cold. Daniel moved calmly, like he had all the time in the world. Another door clicked. Then another. One by one, inmates slipped out, staying close to the walls, eyes burning with anger and excitement. This was no riot of rage. This was a plan. Michael's door stayed shut. He hadn't nodded. He hadn't agreed. And now he was trapped, either stay silent and survive, or get pulled into something that could end in blood. Daniel raised his hand, and the men stopped moving. "No yelling," Daniel whispered. "No running. We make noise, we lose." One inmate shook nervously. "What about the guards?" Daniel smiled faintly. "They are watching the wrong screens." Michael's stomach twisted. Somehow, someone had messed with the cameras. An alarm suddenly chirped, not loud, just a warning sound. A guard shouted from the end of the hall. "Unit D. Report." That was the spark. An inmate lunged forward and slammed a cart into the wall. Metal crashed. Someone shouted. Another inmate began banging on a door with his fists. Chaos exploded. This time, it wasn't controlled. Guards came running. Orders were screamed. Sirens wailed louder than before. Michael's door finally slid open, forced by hands from the outside. Daniel stood there, breathing hard. "You're coming," he said. "I didn't agree to this," Michael shouted. "It doesn't matter," Daniel snapped. "No one's innocent once this starts." Before Michael could answer, a loud boom shook the floor. Smoke filled the hallway as a flash device went off. Michael dropped to his knees, ears ringing, eyes burning. Men screamed. Guards shouted. The world turned white, then dark. Hands grabbed Michael and dragged him back into his cell. The door slammed shut just as armed officers flooded the hall, rifles raised. "Down! Everyone down!" Michael curled on the floor, shaking. Through the thick glass, he saw Daniel forced face first against the wall, blood running from his eyebrow. Other inmates lay flat, hands behind their heads. Within minutes, it was over. The Near-Riot had failed, but the damage was done. Later that night, silence returned to ADXa. Too quiet. Michael sat on his bed, staring at the wall. His hands still trembled. He kept replaying Daniel's words in his head. "No one's innocent once this starts." Hours passed. Then, without warning, the lights in his cell shut off. Total darkness. A voice came softly through the vent, barely a whisper. "This wasn't the end," it said. "It was only a warning." Michael's breath caught in his throat. Somewhere deep inside ADXa, something far more dangerous than a riot had been set in motion.